Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, guys. Good morning, and welcome to the Daily Edge. Just a little news and motivation we're gonna go through this morning. Let everybody know what's going on with the news. Hopefully, they're getting ready for work this morning. Kind of jumping, kind of getting my shit figured out, guys. So bear with me. Um, let's jump into world news. See what Gemini's got for us today.
Let's jump into the top stories from around the world.
Anything
Global
new?
News Update, 7:15 a.m. Central Standard Time, November 21st, 2025. The main focus today is on escalating diplomatic tensions and a major peace proposal. Ukraine peace plan controversy. European response. European leaders, including the UK, France, and Germany, are holding an urgent call with Ukrainian President Zelensky to discuss the new US-Russia proposal aimed at Zelensky's position. The Ukrainian president thanked the leaders for their principled support
Morning,
and confirmed
Sissa.
they will coordinate to ensure Ukraine's position is included in any final peace deal. Proposal authorship. Analysis suggests that some language in the 28-point U.S. draft proposal contains phrases that appear to have been originally written in Russian, prompting questions about the text's authorship and intent. Japan, economic and diplomatic tensions. Massive stimulus. The Japanese government approved a huge 21.3 trillion yen, $135 billion economic package. Prime Minister Takaichi's first, designed to combat rising living costs. China postpones talks. A scheduled trilateral culture ministers meeting between Japan, China, and South Korea was postponed by China. The decision is linked to an escalating diplomatic feud over recent remarks made by PM Takaichi concerning Taiwan. Nuclear restart. The governor of Niigata, Japan, approved the restart of the number 6 reactor at the Kashiwazaki Kariwa power plant, the first for TEPCO since the 2011 Fukushima disaster, despite local division and safety concerns. G20 summit tensions. U.S. versus host. The G20 summit in Johannesburg, South Africa, is reportedly being overshadowed by diplomatic tensions between the host country and the U.S. South Africa is pushing its own agenda, focusing on climate impact and debt burdens, while the U.S. is reportedly trying to pressure the host against issuing a traditional leader's declaration. Would you like to move on to national news next?
Let's see what we got. If anybody's interested in any specific details in the news, let me know. Getting up with you guys. China postpones talks. Japanese economic. I think if you guys haven't heard about the first part of the peace treaty or whatever you want to call it, seemed like a crock of shit. Really did. If Ukraine is in such a position to how do I say this? If Ukraine is in such a tough position that they would have to take this, they might as well just give Ukraine to Russia. Weird that Ukrainian language, Russian language, English, all that stuff. I don't know. It's been kind of learning more about that. Watched the Lex Friedman interview with Zelensky. That was interesting. That's something that that's something that I would like to do too, is I think getting on and letting people like that talk, you learn a lot about who that person is, how they talk, how they gesture, what they feel is really put out there. I really wish. I know Tucker Carlson's talked to Putin. Um, Obviously, you kind of got out what you thought you'd get out of that interview. Um, with Lex being able to speak fluent Russian, I think that would be quite an interesting interview. Um, I bet you there's a million people that would like to sit down in front of Putin and try to figure things out. Um, and all in all, I can see how, um, Russia in no way possible wants um, um, the United Nations. They just want to feel safe, along with Ukrainians want to feel safe, and for some reason, when people want to feel safe, they go to war, which is unsafe. But it's a repeating pattern we've done since the beginning of time. So let's, unless anybody wants to hear more about Ukraine and Russia, what do we got nationally?
Here are the top stories dominating the news across the United States today. National news: Coast Guard reverses policy on hate symbols. The U.S. Coast Guard has issued a new, more stringent policy reversing a previous decision on hate symbols. The new policy strictly prohibits the display of divisive or hate symbols and flags, specifically listing the swastika and noose and classifying them as prohibited conduct that undermines unit cohesion. The change came hours after initial reports suggested the service would downgrade these symbols to merely potentially divisive. Major sanctions on Iran's oil network. The U.S. Treasury Department has unveiled a new major set of sanctions targeting Iran's extensive shadow oil network. The sanctions target dozens of entities and individuals, including an India-based shipping firm accused of moving billions of dollars worth of Iranian crude to fund its military and nuclear programs. The Treasury Secretary stated the action continues the campaign to cut off funding for the Iranian regime's malign activities. Delayed jobs report released. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics finally released the delayed September 2025 Employment Situation Report after a weeks-long government shutdown. The economy added a stronger than expected 119,000 jobs in September. However, the unemployment rate ticked up to 4.4%, the highest since October 2021, partly because more people entered the workforce. The data provides clarity for the Federal Reserve, but complicates the outlook for potential interest rate cuts, as job growth remains relatively solid.
How does that
Would you
make
like to
any
hear the local
sense?
news for Fairmont, MN, next?
No. What? However, the unemployment rate ticked up by 4.4%, the highest since October 2021. Partly because more people entered the workforce. How does unemployment go up if more people enter the workforce? How does unemployment go up 4.4 if more people enter the workforce? Maybe I'm too sleepy still and don't
That's a great question, and it points to a common nuance in how the unemployment rate is calculated. The unemployment rate increases when more people enter the workforce, but cannot immediately find a job. Here is a breakdown of why this happens. 1. Definition of the labor force. The unemployment rate is the percentage of the labor force that is unemployed.
Yes.
The labor force is defined as all people who are either employed or actively looking for work. 2. The increase in the labor force. When the economy is perceived to be getting stronger, people who had previously given up looking for work, called discouraged workers, or people who had been focused on school or staying home, decide to re-enter the job market. They are now officially counted as part of the labor force. Crucially, the moment they re-enter and start actively looking for a job, they are counted as unemployed, even if they find a job a week later. 3. The resulting math. In the scenario you described, the numerator, unemployed people, goes up because these
Okay. Understood. Understood. There's something else I wanted to look into. Yeah, National Guard policy on hate symbols. Hate symbols like hate symbols like sorry. Oh, don't do that. You tried to jump onto the other one. Hate symbols like nooses on flight. Sometimes electronics.
The U.S. Coast Guard's new,
Okay.
firmer policy specifically names and prohibits the following symbols: a noose, a swastika. The policy also prohibits any symbols or flags co-opted or adopted by hate-based groups as representations of supremacy, racial or religious intolerance, anti-Semitism, any other improper bias. Additionally, the Coast Guard's policy specifically states that the display or depiction of the Confederate battle flag remains prohibited across all Coast Guard workplaces, facilities, and assets. These symbols are classified as reflecting hateful and prohibited conduct that undermines unit cohesion and morale. Ready for the local news now?
No, so does that mean that there's been a lot of Coast Guards putting Nazi symbols and nooses on their boats and flags, or what? I don't. I didn't hear.
That's a very fair question to ask. The recent policy change doesn't necessarily mean there has been a sudden surge of those symbols on ships. The issue is primarily a political and definitional one that has created a public firestorm in the last 24 hours. Here's what the available information suggests. The core controversy: the original policy leak. Earlier this week, a new Coast Guard policy document was revealed, first reported by the Washington Post, which appeared to downgrade the classification of swastikas and nooses from being listed as symbols of oppression or hatred and a potential hate incident to merely potentially divisive.
Okay.
The concern: lawmakers and advocates immediately expressed outrage, arguing that labeling a noose or swastika as merely potentially divisive downplayed their historical meaning of hate, fascism, and racist violence, specifically against Black and Jewish people. The concern was that this change could make it harder for commanders to enforce a strict zero-tolerance policy. The reversal. In a quick, highly unusual reversal, the Coast Guard immediately issued a new, firmer policy late yesterday. This final policy explicitly states divisive or hate symbols and flags are prohibited, and specifically names the swastika and the noose as being included in that prohibited category. Why the policy exists? The policy exists due to a history of actual incidents of hate and extremism within the service, not just theoretical ones. For example, policies banning extremist symbols were strengthened across the military following the January 6th Capitol attack and other high-profile incidents involving service members. One reported incident that led to policy changes in the past involved the discovery of a noose in a Black cadet's bag aboard a Coast Guard vessel in 2007, which brought national attention to the issue of racial tension within the service. So the policy is an effort to proactively maintain unit cohesion and discipline by unequivocally banning symbols that have been and remain associated with extremism and hate, even if they aren't on every boat. The recent news was about a temporary, failed attempt to change the language of that ban. Ready for the local news for Fairmont, MN?
Is there anything new going on in Fairmont?
You bet. Here's the latest local news and events for Fairmont, MN. Local news, Fairmont, MN. Tonight, Fairmont Glows Parade.
Nice.
The biggest event today is the start of the holiday season. What? The annual Glows Parade featuring thousands of twinkling lights and festive floats. When? Tonight, Friday, November 21st at 6 p.m. Route. The parade starts at the Downtown Plaza and travels to Lincoln Park. Other activities: before the parade, Santa and Mrs. Claus are scheduled to fly into the Fairmont Municipal Airport around 4:05 p.m., followed by the tree lighting ceremony at 5:30 p.m. at the Downtown Plaza. Lakes Management Update. The Lakes Management Committee met this week to continue addressing the health of the Fairmont chain of lakes, curly-leaf pondweed, CLP. Discussions centered on ongoing management plans to combat the invasive curly-leaf pondweed, CLP. Initial studies show the CLP infestation is leading to a reduction in native aquatic plant species. Management focus. The committee is moving toward the management phase and is considering options like aquatic invasive removal and treatment. with an emphasis on timing any harvesting efforts before the end of May. Community center efforts end. It was noted in local editorials that the Fairmont Area Community Center Foundation, FACC, has ended its efforts to pursue a new community center. This decision has caused many in the community to express a feeling of great loss over the potential amenities that will not be realized.
Yep.
Would you like to move on to the weather forecast for Fairmont, or are you ready for the motivation segment?
No, let's definitely hit that weather first and see what we got going on in a 7-day forecast, please. Can you? Can you maybe? Jesus. It just glitched on me. Let's try this again. And paste. And all right, we got the 7-day forecast. Maybe here we go. Today we got cloudy turning into clear tonight, high at 44. You need a ride, bud, or are you getting on the bus?
Hopefully the bus is there.
Okay, if not, I can give you a ride. We got today cloudy, high of 44s, lows 28. Sunny and much warmer at a 54 tomorrow, 55.
You don't have to give me a ride.
All right, cool. 55 Sunday. Monday we're looking at 49 and light rain. Tuesday we're looking at 40, mostly cloudy, turning colder. Wednesday the 26th, partly sunny, high of 33. 27th, mostly cloudy, high of 31. There's some chance of snow and mixed rain in them days, but the percentage is pretty low. All right, wrap all that up into a pretty little nutshell and give me some motivation. Pretty little nutshell.
Absolutely. Here is your entire news package wrapped up in a nutshell, followed by today's motivation. The daily briefing in a nutshell. Segment, key takeaway, global, diplomatic tensions are high, overshadowing the G20, and a major US-Russia peace plan for Ukraine is causing controversy among allies. National, the US Coast Guard issued a swift, firm reversal to strictly ban hate symbols like the swastika and noose. The delayed September jobs report showed higher than expected job creation, 119K, but the unemployment rate ticked up to 4.4% as more people entered the workforce. Local, it's a festive day in Fairmont. The Glows Parade and tree lighting are tonight, starting at 5:30 p.m. downtown. Local efforts to build a new community center have unfortunately ended. Weather. A beautiful weekend is ahead, with highs in the mid-50s and sun. A cold front arrives early next week, bringing a transition from rain on Monday to snow and cold by Tuesday. Motivation for the day. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Eleanor Roosevelt. Your dreams, like launching your news program, are the blueprint for your future. The challenges of the week or the day are just steps on the way to realizing that vision. Now that the briefing is complete, are you ready to go live? Or is there one last check you'd like to make before 7:30?
Man, we've been live. I don't want to say that. Okay. So, motivation for today, guys. Motivation. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Eleanor Roosevelt. Let me say that again. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. Keep your head up. Keep moving forward. You guys got this. Let's kick the rest of today's ass and enjoy the weekend. Until next time, guys. Peace.